For years, people have wondered about Tiffany and Melania's relationship. Were they close? Did Melania really treat Tiffany like family? Or was there some hidden tension nobody wanted to talk about? Well, at 31 years old, Tiffany has finally opened up, and the truth is way more surprising than anyone expected. Let's be honest, when it comes to the Trump family, things are rarely what they seem. And trust me, what Tiffany revealed is not what you'd think. So grab some popcorn, because this story is something else. Tiffany's early years were quite different from those of her famous siblings. She was born on October 13, 1993, at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, 2 months before her parents, Donald Trump and Marla Maples, tied the knot. That alone set the stage for a very unique upbringing compared to the rest of the Trump kids. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the main content. While Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric were growing up amid the fast-paced, ultra-luxurious life of New York City, surrounded by gold accents and groomed to carry on their dad's empire, Tiffany's childhood was a whole different story. It was quieter, simpler, and far away from the skyscrapers and boardrooms that shaped her siblings' lives. After Donald and Marla divorced in 1999, Marla made a life-changing decision. She moved Tiffany to California. Why? She wanted to keep her daughter away from the chaotic, high-pressure Trump world and give her as normal a childhood as possible, even with the famous last name. For years, speculation swirled about how Tiffany really got along with her stepmom Melania. Were they close? Did they like each other? Or was there some tension lurking beneath the surface of those picture-perfect family photos? Now, Tiffany is finally breaking her silence. But before you jump to any conclusions, you've got to hear exactly what she said, because the truth is far more unexpected than the rumors. Instead of growing up in Trump Tower with security guards and paparazzi everywhere, Tiffany's life in Calabasas, California was full of backyard trampolines, home-cooked organic meals, and cozy nights watching Gilmore Girls with her mom. It sounds like a totally different world from the high-stakes business environment her siblings knew, right? Tiffany attended the prestigious Viewpoint School, where tuition topped $30,000 a year. Not your average childhood, but still a far cry from the ultra-glamorous New York lifestyle. Through it all, Marla stayed devoted to raising Tiffany as a hands-on, single mom. Marla even chose to stay single for a while, telling people she didn't want anything to come between her and Tiffany. And honestly, their bond was everything. Friends of Tiffany often say they were closer like best friends than just mother and daughter. While her half-siblings were getting lessons in their father's business empire, Tiffany was sharing deep conversations with her mom back home in California. But here's the catch. Being so far away from her dad meant she didn't see him nearly as much as her siblings did. Sure, he provided financially, making sure she had a top-notch education and all the essentials, but when it came to spending time and giving attention, that was mostly Marla's role. Tiffany did spend spring breaks at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's lavish resort in Florida, and he sometimes flew out to California for her school events. But it wasn't the steady, everyday presence he had with his kids on the East Coast. Marla summed it up pretty clearly. He's a good provider when it comes to education and stuff, but in terms of time, it was just me. That says a lot. Then there's Melania. Since Tiffany was still a kid when Melania entered the picture, Marla made an effort to foster a good relationship between them. She'd bring Tiffany to New York a few times a year so she could have dinner with her dad and Melania, letting those family ties grow naturally. Still, Tiffany wasn't really raised fully inside the Trump family bubble. She wasn't at the same events or parties, nor constantly immersed in the Trump lifestyle. Tiffany has openly acknowledged how different her upbringing was compared to her siblings. Back in 2013, during an interview with Oprah, she said, "Growing up on the West Coast, I'm definitely different from all of them who were raised on the East Coast." And that might actually be putting it lightly. While her siblings were being groomed for careers in business, attending high-profile functions, and stepping into leadership roles within their father's company, Tiffany was simply living her own life. No corporate pressure, no daily headlines, no expectation to carry on the Trump legacy. Because of this, Tiffany has always been somewhat of an outsider in the family. One insider admitted she didn't really grow up in the Trump household and didn't have the same privileges as her half-siblings. You can really see it. While Ivanka was deeply involved with the Trump organization and later the White House, Tiffany was off doing her own thing, going to school, hanging out with friends, and staying under the radar. But here's the surprising part. Despite the distance and different upbringing, Tiffany has always spoken warmly about her dad. She's described him as the funniest, most loving father, and even though they didn't spend a ton of time together, she never felt their relationship was strained. "We see each other as much as possible, and of course we talk on the phone," Tiffany once shared. "No matter the distance, I don't think that creates any strain in our relationship." That's a pretty interesting perspective, right? From the outside, it might seem like the distance would cause a disconnect, but Tiffany clearly doesn't feel that way at all. Though Tiffany's childhood was very different from her siblings, she enjoyed a quiet, loving, and grounded upbringing with her mom, far from the whirlwind of the Trump name. And while that may have made her the different Trump, it also gave her a sense of independence her siblings might never fully understand. Donald Trump and Melania Knauss's story started like something out of a movie. It was September 1998 at the Kit Kat Club, a trendy Manhattan hotspot. Melania had only been in the U.S. for 2 years, having moved from Slovenia to pursue her modeling career. There she was, at a glitzy event, when Donald Trump noticed her. Donald, never shy about going after what he wants, asked for her number. But Melania, ever composed and confident, flipped the script and asked for his number instead. That small power move was just a hint of the quiet strength that would define her role in his life for years to come. Fast forward, and Melania found herself in a whole new world. Not just as Donald's girlfriend, but stepping into a family that was already well established. His children weren't little anymore. They were grown and independent with their own lives. This made things easier in some ways, no custody battles or co-parenting headaches, but it also meant Melania had to navigate a space where she wasn't expected to be a mother figure, yet still needed to find her place. And let's be honest, dealing with a strong-willed, powerful businessman like Donald is one challenge, but stepping into a family where the kids had long-established routines, relationships, and expectations, that's a whole different ballgame. One relationship that stood out was between Melania and Tiffany. Unlike Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, who were adults when Melania came into the picture, Tiffany was just 6 years old when Donald and Melania started dating. Plus, Tiffany lived across the country in California with her mom, which could have created a big emotional gap between them. But Melania didn't want Tiffany to feel like the other child, the one who didn't belong to the close-knit Trump family in New York. A touching example of their early bond is a photo from 2000 showing Melania smiling warmly, holding 7-year-old Tiffany close at a tennis match while Donald watched. It's a simple moment, but it says a lot. Melania wasn't just Donald's girlfriend tagging along. She was actively trying to connect, showing warmth and being present. That kind of connection was probably exactly what Tiffany needed. Having a famous, often absent father and living far away could have made her feel like an outsider in her own family. But Melania wanted her to feel included, to know she had a place no matter how complicated her parents' relationship was. In her memoir, Melania shares her views on being a stepmother, and honestly, it's refreshing. She never saw herself as someone trying to replace the kids' biological mothers. Instead, she saw her role as a supportive presence, a person the kids could rely on without feeling pressured to accept her in any particular way. And honestly, that's probably the healthiest way to handle it. No one wants to feel forced to like or accept a step-parent just because they married into the family. These relationships take time, patience, and mutual respect. And Melania seemed to understand that from the very beginning. One of her guiding principles is summed up in a phrase she lives by: Don't control, communicate. You can see how that mindset applies not only to her relationship with Donald's kids, but to how she navigates life in the public eye overall. She's not the type to dominate conversations or make everything about herself. Instead, she listens carefully, observes quietly, and speaks up only when it's truly necessary. That approach has definitely worked in her favor, especially in a family like the Trumps, where strong opinions run wild and no one's shy about sharing them. Tiffany Trump has always been the most mysterious member of the Trump family. Raised far from the political spotlight, her relationship with Melania has long been a subject of speculation and mystery. But now, Tiffany has finally spoken out, and what she revealed is turning heads. Some folks saw it coming, while others are totally surprised. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end, because the truth is even messier than anyone imagined. The Trump family has always been under the microscope, presenting a polished, united front to the public. But if you look closer, especially at Tiffany and Melania's relationship, it gets way more interesting. It's easy to assume they just keep things polite for the cameras. But if you pay attention, there are little moments that hint at something deeper, something more genuine. And let's be real, in a family like the Trumps, where power, politics, and a heavy legacy constantly swirl, relationships are rarely simple. Still, over the years, Tiffany and Melania's connection has quietly evolved. Now it's clear they've built something authentic. Take Tiffany's 2022 wedding at Lago as an example. Weddings can either bring families closer or expose hidden tensions. But in Tiffany's case, the event seemed to unite everyone in a surprising way. Melania and Marla Maples, Tiffany's mother, both played a role in the bridal shower, celebrating side by side. And honestly, that's not something you see every day, especially between an ex-wife and a current wife in a family so conscious of status and image. The fact that they came together for Tiffany speaks volumes. They even had a Tiffany blue cake, a small detail, but knowing how meticulously the Trumps plan every event, it wasn't a coincidence. It symbolized two different sides of the family coming together to honor Tiffany's big day. And it wasn't just about the women. Tiffany's relationship with her half-siblings is also interesting. Many assume that growing up on the West Coast with her mom made her feel like an outsider in the Trump family. But insiders say that couldn't be further from the truth. Apparently, the Trump siblings get along just fine, even if they don't constantly share updates about each other on social media. At the 2024 Republican National Convention, Tiffany stood alongside her siblings in a way she hadn't before. In previous years, she tended to stay more in the background, but this time, she was clearly present, signaling a shift in her role within the family. Ivanka, meanwhile, has been stepping back from politics, while Don Jr. and Eric have stayed front and center. It almost seems like Tiffany is naturally stepping into a bigger role within the family, possibly helped by her growing closeness with Melania. Now, let's talk about Melania. She's one of the more mysterious figures in the Trump family since she keeps a low profile compared to the others. When she does speak publicly, it's usually very deliberate. Donald Trump himself noted in a 2023 interview that Melania prefers to avoid the spotlight because of how harsh and critical the media can be. But even with her privacy, she remains a key figure in the family dynamic, which makes her relationship with Tiffany all the more interesting. In a family where appearances are everything, the fact that Melania and Tiffany have been spotted together more often, and in relaxed, genuine moments, speaks volumes. With Tiffany now preparing to become a mom, their bond seems to be growing even stronger. Maybe it's because Melania understands what it's like to raise a child in the Trump spotlight and sees Tiffany entering that phase of life herself. Or maybe it's just that they've always shared an unspoken understanding that doesn't need to be broadcast. Whatever the case, it's clear their relationship has developed into something authentic, something beyond the polished public image the Trump family usually presents. And in a family where personal and political lives are so tightly connected, finding that kind of real connection is rare. If you thought the Trump family drama had reached its peak, wait until you hear what Tiffany has finally said about Melania. For years, people speculated about their relationship. But now, at 31, Tiffany is ready to set the record straight. So grab your popcorn and stay tuned. This story has some twists you definitely won't expect. People love to jump to conclusions about famous families, and Tiffany and Melania have been no exception. For years, folks assumed their relationship was distant, awkward, or even cold. But new details are finally shedding light on what's really going on, and it's not what most imagined. For a long time, many thought Tiffany was the forgotten Trump child. Unlike Ivanka, who was everywhere during Donald Trump's presidency, Tiffany kept a much lower profile. She wasn't giving speeches, attending every White House event, or really making many public appearances at all. Naturally, this sparked a lot of speculation. Was there some family drama? Was she being kept at a distance? Was Melania, the glamorous and private First Lady, making sure Tiffany stayed out of the spotlight? Rumors swirled, especially when stories came out that Tiffany hadn't spoken to her father for months. Add to that the fact that she was mostly raised by her mother, Marla Maples, and it only fueled the belief that Tiffany was an outsider in the Trump family. The media often labeled her as the other daughter, the one who wasn't part of Ivanka's inner circle, not deeply involved in the Trump empire, and someone who didn't quite fit into the picture-perfect billionaire family image. Even Trump biographer Gwenda Blair noted that Tiffany seemed somewhat apart from her siblings, almost like she lived in a different world than the rest of the family. This only led to more assumptions that Tiffany and Melania didn't have much of a relationship either. After all, if Tiffany wasn't fully wrapped up in the Trump family brand, why would Melania, who is famously private, bother to build a close bond with her? But here's the thing. Those assumptions were completely off. In reality, Tiffany and Melania share a much closer connection than most people think. Despite the rumors, Melania made sure Tiffany was included in family events and felt connected to her half-siblings. When Tiffany was planning her wedding to Michael Boulos, Melania played a surprisingly significant role behind the scenes. That experience brought them even closer and proved their relationship wasn't just formal or distant. It was genuine. So why is Tiffany opening up now? A lot has changed for her. She's 31, married, and preparing to start her own family. Big life moments like these often lead people to reflect on family relationships in new ways. She's looking at things differently now, recognizing just how complicated family dynamics can be, and realizing that despite the rumors, her bond with Melania has always been real. It also helps that the Trump family itself is going through big changes. With Ivanka stepping back from politics and the public eye, Tiffany's role in the family is naturally growing. She's becoming more visible, more involved, and making it clear she's not some forgotten or estranged daughter. That's why now was the right time to address the rumors and set the record straight. We hope this clears things up once and for all. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. To catch more...
I've given a few speeches in front of classrooms of students, but never in an arena with more than 10 million people watching.
Tiffany Trump has always been the most private member of the Trump family, keeping a low profile compared to her well-known siblings. But now she finds herself at the heart of a family upheaval that has left her utterly speechless, thanks to a surprising move made by her father, Donald Trump. What exactly did he do that caught Tiffany completely off guard? Is this a betrayal within the family, a strategic power play, or something even more significant? Let's uncover the truth behind Trump's latest shocking choice and why it could change everything for Tiffany. Tiffany Trump has long existed on the periphery of the Trump dynasty, close enough to be involved, but distant enough to forge her own path. Unlike her siblings Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, who embraced the public spotlight and political battles, Tiffany chose to stay under the radar. But a recent, unexpected development has left her stunned and could alter the course of her future. For someone who worked hard to balance her loyalty to her father with her own ambitions, Donald Trump's recent decision was a complete surprise. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now let's get back to the main content. While her brothers and sister have taken center stage in his business and political world, Tiffany quietly built a life apart from it all. Now, she faces the harsh reality that her father might be sidelining her. So, what exactly did Trump do that shocked Tiffany? When she decided to enroll in Georgetown law back in 2017, many believed she was making a conscious choice to step away from the family spotlight. Instead of jumping into the family business or diving headfirst into politics, Tiffany focused on the legal field, criminal justice reform and cyber law specifically. It was a bold, unconventional path that showed she had no intention of simply riding on the Trump name. Imagine walking into a classroom where half the students have already formed opinions about you before you even say a word. That was Tiffany's experience. But rather than leveraging her family's fame, she kept her head down and concentrated on her studies. She even took on leadership roles, co-leading the Cyber Law Society and working as a research assistant for Professor Sean Hopwood, a former bank robber turned law professor known for his work in criminal justice reform. This was a side of Tiffany Trump few expected to see. While many assumed she was just another privileged kid enjoying a life of luxury, she was actually dedicating herself to serious legal work, sometimes at odds with her father's political views. She contributed to discussions that helped shape the First Step Act, one of the Trump administration's most notable bipartisan successes. Despite her achievements, Tiffany was never fully welcomed into the core of the Trump empire. She was always somewhat of an outsider, present, but not truly part of the inner circle. Unlike her siblings, who grew up in Trump Tower and were groomed to inherit the family business, Tiffany was raised on the West Coast by her mother, Marla Maples. She didn't have the same constant immersion in Donald Trump's business ventures and political strategies. That made her stand out. And in the Trump world, standing out isn't always a good thing. Insiders have often referred to Tiffany as the odd one out within the family dynamic. She wasn't raised with the intense pressure or expectations that shaped Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric. She didn't attend business meetings or learn the ropes of the Trump empire firsthand. Instead, her upbringing in California kept her distanced from the family brand. That distance became even clearer when she began law school. Her advisor, Hossein Fetni, noted that Tiffany showed a genuine passion for human rights and legal issues affecting minority communities, areas that didn't necessarily line up with her father's political views. Unlike her siblings, she wasn't out there defending every move Donald Trump made, which made her stand apart even more. At Georgetown, Tiffany also faced criticism simply because of her last name. Some classmates openly challenged her on her father's policies, especially regarding immigration. Yet Tiffany handled the scrutiny with remarkable poise. Instead of arguing or trying to justify every decision, she often said something like, "I hear you, and I hope we can move forward." It was a graceful way to manage a nearly impossible position. Still, no matter how much she tried to avoid controversy, Tiffany couldn't escape the shadow of her family name. When Tiffany graduated from Georgetown Law in 2020, the world was deep in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like many students, she finished her degree online, missing out on the traditional ceremony. But what happened next made headlines. Donald Trump, never one to shy away from grandiose claims, publicly said Tiffany had graduated #1 in her class. The catch? Georgetown Law doesn't actually rank students that way. When people looked into the details, it turned out Tiffany's GPA wasn't high enough to qualify for honors. Was she a good student? Definitely. But was she the top of her class? That wasn't accurate. This incident exposed a bigger pattern, Trump's habit of exaggerating, even about his own daughter. For Tiffany, it was yet another reminder that no matter what she does, she'll always be linked to her father's larger-than-life persona, whether she wants it or not. Every famous family has that one member who seems like the outsider. For the Trumps, that's Tiffany. When people think about Donald Trump's children, the spotlight usually shines on Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, the ones who've built their careers on their father's name. But Tiffany? She's long been viewed as the other daughter, the one who doesn't fit the family's high-profile, business-focused political mold. And now, after years of quietly supporting her father from the sidelines, Tiffany has been blindsided by a shocking decision from Donald Trump himself, one that could change her place in the family forever. Tiffany's role within the Trump family has always been complex. While her siblings were raised in the heart of New York City, deeply embedded in their father's business empire, Tiffany grew up in California with her mother, Marla Maples. That physical and emotional distance set her apart from the start. Unlike Ivanka, who was groomed early on to be a polished public figure and a key player in the Trump organization, Tiffany was never really positioned as a central figure in the family's brand. Even in the media, Tiffany is often introduced as the daughter from Trump's second marriage, a label that immediately sets her apart from the rest. She's rarely mentioned alongside her half-siblings, and when she is, it's usually about how disconnected she is from the core family. When she does appear publicly, she's often the target of parody and criticism. Take her 2020 speech at the Republican National Convention as an example. Unlike her siblings, who embraced political messaging and strongly defended their father, Tiffany took a different route. She called out the media for presenting one biased opinion or another and warned about how people's beliefs can be manipulated. It was her way of distancing herself from being seen as just another Trump spokesperson. But did it really change perceptions? Not really. Beyond the media's scrutiny, Tiffany has always been shadowed by comparisons to Ivanka, comparisons that have made it tough for her to carve out her own identity within the family. Ivanka, polished and business-savvy, has long been Donald Trump's favored child and is often viewed as his heir apparent. She played a clear role in both the Trump organization and his presidency. Tiffany, meanwhile, grew up in a completely different environment, far from the skyscrapers and boardrooms of Manhattan. This distance only fueled speculation about her place in the family. Things didn't get easier when reports surfaced claiming that Trump was reluctant to take photos with Tiffany. A former White House aide leaked a comment suggesting Trump wasn't as eager to include Tiffany in family photos as he was with Ivanka. The aide was later fired, and Trump publicly insisted, "Tiffany is great. I love Tiffany." But the mere existence of such rumors says a lot. Dr. Sanam Hafiz, a noted psychologist, has pointed out that constant comparisons to Ivanka in the media likely made Tiffany feel undervalued or overlooked within the family. Imagine growing up knowing that no matter what you achieve, you'll always be in the shadow of the golden child. That kind of pressure helps explain why Tiffany has maintained such a low profile. Before Donald Trump entered politics, Tiffany lived a relatively normal life, at least as normal as it could be with her last name. Biographer Michael D'Antonio noted that she was somewhat shielded from the chaos surrounding her father's business and media presence. But when Trump launched his presidential campaign, everything shifted. Suddenly, Tiffany was thrust into a spotlight she hadn't anticipated. Her father's last name became one of the most powerful and divisive in modern history. Unlike her siblings who had grown up immersed in the Trump brand and were accustomed to intense media scrutiny, Tiffany had to adjust to this new reality in real time. D'Antonio called it an identity that is very unfair. And he's right. While Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric were fully in step with their father's political machine, Tiffany had to find her own way to balance loyalty to her family with her personal goals. Still, she made the effort. She supported her father throughout both of his presidential campaigns, spoke at major political events, and even earned a law degree from Georgetown to boost her public standing. Yet despite all that, she remained somewhat of an outsider within her own family. Tiffany Trump's relationship with Michael Boulos has the feel of a modern fairy tale, mixed with a dose of political intrigue and billionaire-level stakes. Unlike typical summer romances that fizzle once vacation ends, Tiffany and Michael's connection showed real staying power. Their story began in July 2018, when Tiffany was enjoying a summer break at Lindsay Lohan's beach club in Mykonos and crossed paths with Michael, heir to a well-known Lebanese business family with strong ties to Nigeria. What could have been just a casual fling turned into something serious, drawing her further into the high-profile world she had long navigated on her own terms. At first, they kept their relationship fairly private. No flashy public declarations or staged social media posts designed to make headlines. They preferred to take things slow and enjoy time together away from the spotlight. By September 2018, though, they felt ready to appear publicly as a couple for the first time, making their debut at New York Fashion Week. Dating a Trump isn't like dating just anyone. It's not as simple as meeting the family over dinner. Instead, Michael was introduced to the inner workings of the Trump empire at Lago, where every conversation is a test and every interaction scrutinized. That Thanksgiving, Michael experienced the full Trump family scene: lavish gold-plated decor, political talk over turkey, and a unique family dynamic. Despite the pressure, he made a strong impression and earned his place by Tiffany's side. By January 2021, their relationship took a significant step forward. Michael proposed not in some ordinary place, but in the White House Rose Garden, presenting Tiffany with a stunning ring valued at $1.2 million. The timing, just one day before Donald Trump left office, added extra intrigue to the engagement. It marked the close of Tiffany's chapter as a first daughter and the start of an exciting new phase, though not without its own set of challenges. For their wedding, Tiffany and Michael considered several locations, from Miami to Greece, but ultimately chose Mar-a-Lago. The choice wasn't just about extravagance, it was deeply sentimental. Tiffany's mother, Marla Maples, called it the place where Tiffany was brought into the world, making it a meaningful spot for such a milestone. However, as with anything involving the Trump family, the wedding had its share of drama. Just days before the wedding, Hurricane Nicole swept toward Florida, forcing Mar-a-Lago to evacuate its staff and leaving Tiffany in a state of panic. With 500 guests awaiting news and Palm Beach International Airport temporarily closed, the entire event was up in the air. But as if by some stroke of luck, the storm passed, and the skies cleared just in time. On November 12th, beneath a gazebo draped in flowers, Tiffany made her way down the aisle wearing a custom Elie Saab gown, a meaningful nod to Michael's Lebanese roots. The ceremony was a fusion of two worlds: wealth, politics, and international business, marking Tiffany's official entry into the Boulos family legacy. Donald Trump himself gave his daughter away and shared a touching father-daughter dance, a rare private moment for a family so often defined by its public image. Meanwhile, Marla Maples, ever the loving mother, offered a heartfelt prayer during the ceremony, making sure the event stayed intimate amid the grandeur. Now, as Tiffany and Michael start their new life together, they face the challenge of merging two influential, high-profile families. Tiffany, who has long existed on the fringes of the Trump empire, now finds herself at a pivotal moment, balancing her new role as a member of the Boulos dynasty while still carrying the weight of the Trump name. Tiffany's relationship with her half-siblings has always been shaped by distance, differing upbringings, and their father's larger-than-life persona. While Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric were raised in the heart of New York's elite social and business scenes, Tiffany spent her childhood on the West Coast with her mother. That physical and emotional separation meant Tiffany never quite fit into the same family mold as her older siblings. But Marla Maples worked hard to make sure Tiffany didn't feel left out. She prioritized keeping Tiffany connected by encouraging her to attend family gatherings and celebrate important milestones, despite the differences in geography and lifestyle. As Tiffany grew older, things began to shift. Attending the University of Pennsylvania, the same school her father and Ivanka attended, gave her more chances to bond with her half-siblings. Ivanka, in particular, stepped into a big sister role, offering guidance and career advice. She often showed affection for Tiffany, including her in public events and making efforts to bring her closer to the family's inner circle. But beneath the polished family portraits, tension simmered. Despite the outward show of unity, Tiffany's place in the Trump world remained somewhat uncertain. Her more reserved and private personality set her apart from the highly visible roles her siblings played in their father's business and political life. Media speculation only added fuel to the fire, painting Tiffany as the family outsider. Reports surfaced suggesting that Donald Trump wasn't as eager to put Tiffany in the spotlight compared to Ivanka. Leaked remarks from a former White House secretary only added fuel to the fire, implying that Trump wasn't very enthusiastic about including Tiffany in family photos. The situation escalated when Trump, trying to manage the fallout, publicly expressed his love for Tiffany. But the very fact that he had to do so only raised more questions about the true nature of their relationship. If you're curious about where Melania fits into this complicated family picture, you're not alone. Like any blended family, the Trumps have their own set of complexities, and Tiffany's relationship with her stepmother has always been somewhat unclear. Unlike the close, highly visible relationships Donald shares with Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, Tiffany has kept a more distant stance from the family's political and business affairs. From what's been seen publicly, Melania and Tiffany maintain a polite and cordial relationship. They've never shown signs of conflict, but neither have they been especially close. Still, Melania made a point to include Tiffany in important family events. For example, when Tiffany was preparing for her wedding to Michael Boulos, Melania attended her bridal shower in Palm Beach, standing alongside Marla Maples. That's not a common sight, a current wife and an ex-wife celebrating together in harmony. Perhaps that's what helped their relationship work. Much like Tiffany, Melania has often been perceived as somewhat of an outsider within the Trump family's power circle. While Ivanka has taken center stage in her father's political and business ventures, Melania has been selective about when to step forward and when to stay behind the scenes. It seems there might be an unspoken understanding between the two women, a shared experience of living on the fringes of the Trump empire rather than at its core. Melania has addressed the complexities of her relationships with Donald Trump's children in subtle ways. In her memoir, she acknowledged that family relationships can be complicated and that disagreements are a natural part of family life. It was a gentle way of saying, things haven't always been easy, but that's just how families operate. Despite any underlying challenges, Melania and Tiffany have maintained a respectful, drama-free relationship in public. Even during Tiffany's extravagant wedding to Michael Boulos, both Melania and Marla Maples were present at the pre-wedding festivities, showing they can coexist peacefully despite their different roles in Donald Trump's life. What makes this dynamic especially interesting is the contrast between Tiffany's upbringing and that of her half-siblings. While Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric grew up immersed in their father's empire, Tiffany was raised on the West Coast, far removed from the Trump family's business and political world. This shared experience of being somewhat on the sidelines might explain the connection between Tiffany and Melania, which seems built more on mutual understanding than on deep familial ties. With Donald Trump making calculated moves regarding his political future, Tiffany's place within the family feels more uncertain than ever. Her father has consistently relied on Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric for support, while Tiffany has remained more private, balancing loyalty to her family with her desire for independence. Now, as she embarks on a new chapter with Michael Boulos, Tiffany's ties to the Trump legacy could become even more complicated. Will she continue to stay in the background, or will she step into a clearer, more defined role within the family's future? One thing is clear, Tiffany Trump's story is far from finished. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And if you want to hear more shocking stories, click on the next video that appears on your screen. Thanks for watching.
It's so amazing to be with you tonight. and say a few words about my father. Donald Trump has never done anything halfway. Without his unwavering support and care for me during such a challenging time,
Tiffany Trump always kept a low profile. No scandals, no social media outbursts, just quietly living amidst her family's empire. But after her sudden divorce, the silence has finally been broken. Rumors of a troubled marriage, hidden power struggles, and a mysterious real estate deal have sparked a wave of speculation. Now, for the first time, Tiffany is speaking out. What really went on behind closed doors? And why does it feel like this is only the beginning? Before diving into the drama, let's take a closer look at Tiffany herself, the most private and enigmatic member of the Trump family. Unlike her siblings, Tiffany has always been somewhat of an outsider, and maybe that's where the issue lies. She's the wild card, not because she's scandalous, but because we know so little about her. While her brothers and sisters basked in the spotlight, living lavishly, Tiffany hovered on the edges, neither fully inside the family spotlight nor completely detached. That distance made her all the more intriguing. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the main content. Born in 1993 to Donald Trump and his second wife, actress Marla Maples, Tiffany was raised differently than her older siblings. While Ivanka, Eric, and Don Jr. were immersed in the Trump world from the start, Tiffany grew up in sunny California, far from the family's New York stronghold. Her mother was determined to give her a more grounded upbringing, normal, as much as that's possible with a billionaire dad. Tiffany never had the automatic entry into the Trump organization that her siblings enjoyed. Her relationship with her father was distant at best. She spent most of her youth with her mom and only occasionally appeared at family events or Trump Tower, where she noticeably stood apart. While her siblings acted like future CEOs, Tiffany revealed a softer, more creative side. As a teenager, she briefly tried to step into the spotlight with a pop song called Like a Bird. It didn't become a hit, but it showed her ambition to forge her own path outside the Trump name. When that didn't take off, Tiffany shifted focus and chose a more conventional route: college. She went to the University of Pennsylvania, just like her father and Ivanka, but her experience was different. She wasn't networking for a career in business or politics. She lived more like a typical college student, making friends beyond the usual elite circles and enjoying the college experience. After graduation, Tiffany took a path that truly set her apart: law school at Georgetown. While her siblings dove into real estate deals and political aspirations, Tiffany stayed under the radar, focusing on her studies and keeping clear of drama. Unlike her father and older siblings, she rarely made headlines. She didn't court controversy or try to build a public persona. Even though Tiffany worked hard to create her own identity, she could never fully escape the Trump legacy. Whether she wanted it or not, being a Trump meant facing constant expectations, assumptions, and endless questions about where she truly belonged. Just when it seemed like Tiffany had finally settled into her role within the Trump orbit, she made a headline-grabbing move: a billionaire fiance, an extravagant Mar-a-Lago wedding, and a romance that seemed like something out of a high-society fairy tale. Tiffany Trump and Michael Boulos, a love story from the upper echelons. Tiffany has always been somewhat of an enigma, carefully balancing between the flashy Trump empire and a more private, understated life. But everything shifted when she met Michael Boulos. Suddenly, she wasn't just the overlooked daughter of Donald Trump. She was engaged to a billionaire heir, entering a world even more exclusive than the one she was born into. So, who exactly is Michael Boulos? And how did this elite romance begin? Michael Boulos isn't your typical Trump world suitor. He's not a Wall Street mogul or a political heavyweight. Instead, he hails from genuine wealth built far beyond the U.S., away from Manhattan's glitter. Born in Houston in 1997 but raised in Lagos, Nigeria, Michael is the son of Lebanese business magnates who made their fortune in West Africa. His family owns Boulos Enterprises and SCOA, Nigeria, sprawling companies that deal in everything from motorcycles to heavy machinery. In short, Michael grew up with real, substantial wealth, not the reality TV style, but the quiet kind that wields real power behind the scenes. Despite his billionaire upbringing, Michael isn't the typical trust fund heir flaunting wealth on social media. He's educated, driven, and polished, quite different from the loud, high-profile world Tiffany was raised in. Unlike the Trump brand, where attention is everything, Michael's family keeps a low profile, making their influence even more formidable. So how did a Nigerian billionaire heir cross paths with a Trump? That's where the story gets interesting. A serendipitous meeting in a playground for the rich. Tiffany and Michael's relationship kicked off in a perfectly Trumpian setting, a party in Mykonos, Greece. Yes, Mykonos, the playground for the ultra-wealthy, with super yachts lining the coast and billionaires treating champagne like water. It was the summer of 2018, and Tiffany, freshly graduated from law school and enjoying the perks of youth and wealth, was vacationing abroad. Though she kept a relatively low profile compared to her siblings, she still moved easily within the world's most exclusive social circles. Then, Michael Boulos entered the picture. The exact details of their first encounter are few, but insiders say the chemistry was immediate. Introduced through mutual friends in the elite social scene because, naturally, everyone knows everyone in those circles, their connection was different from the media-driven whirlwind romances of her family. There were no flashing cameras or public declarations, just two young heirs quietly enjoying their time together. What made Michael stand out from Tiffany's previous relationships was his worldly sophistication and understated charm. Michael wasn't just another New York socialite, he had a global upbringing, immersing himself in different cultures and building a powerful network far beyond the walls of Trump Tower. For Tiffany, who had always felt somewhat like an outsider in her own family, Michael's world likely offered both a fresh escape and an elevated status. Unlike most summer flings, their relationship didn't fizzle once the vacation ended. In fact, it only grew stronger. By fall 2018, Michael was already being introduced to the core of the Trump family. Think about that. Tiffany, who had always hovered on the family's periphery, was now bringing a billionaire heir with a sprawling international empire into the fold. It was a bold step that didn't go unnoticed. Michael fit effortlessly into Tiffany's world, showing up at major Trump events and even meeting Donald Trump himself. And surprisingly, Trump, who has very particular standards for who gets close to his family, seemed to approve. Whether it was Michael's wealth, his global influence, or simply the fact that he was nothing like Jared Kushner, he earned his place at the table. As their relationship deepened, Tiffany became more visible in the public eye. She started attending White House functions more often, stood alongside her father at campaign rallies, and even took on a more active political role than ever before. Michael seemed to give her a confidence and sense of belonging she hadn't felt before within the family. By early 2021, rumors of an engagement were already swirling. Tiffany had always kept her dating life private, but Michael was serious about making things official. On January 19, 2021, her father's final day in office, Tiffany announced on Instagram that she was engaged. The timing was hard to miss. As one chapter closed, another opened, one that promised more stability and glamour than anything she'd known before. Michael's proposal featured a 12-carat diamond ring valued at over $1 million, because in their world, bigger is always better. Even with all the excitement around the engagement, whispers started to circulate. Some questioned whether this was a genuine love match or a strategic alliance between two ultra-wealthy families. Others suggested that Tiffany, long seen as the family's outsider, was finally making a power play of her own. Regardless of the speculation, wedding plans were underway, transforming a sun-drenched romance in Mykonos into preparations for a Lago event worthy of royalty. When Tiffany Trump walked down the aisle at Lago, it wasn't just any wedding, It was a grand spectacle, a dazzling display of luxury, legacy, and unmistakable Trump flair. After all, when a president's daughter ties the knot, it's bound to be an unforgettable affair. On November 12, 2022, Tiffany and Michael Boulos said "I do" in front of their closest family and friends at the Trump family's iconic Palm Beach estate. But closest is relative when your last name is Trump. The guest list read like a who's who of high society, political heavyweights, and international business leaders. And the venue? Pure indulgence. Lago, famous for its obvious magnitude. The estate's grand ballrooms, towering palms, and stunning waterfront views were transformed into an elegant paradise. Every detail was meticulously planned. Soft pastel floral arrangements filled the space, while gold accents and sparkling crystal chandeliers added layers of sophistication. This event wasn't just about looks, it was a statement. Tiffany's wedding gown was as breathtaking as the surroundings. She wore a custom Elie Saab dress, paying homage to her husband's Lebanese roots. The gown featured intricate beadwork, sheer long sleeves, and a sweeping train that beautifully combined timeless elegance with modern flair. Her bridal style was classic yet fresh, mirroring her personality, graceful but never overshadowed by the family legacy. One of the most memorable moments was Donald Trump personally walking his daughter down the aisle, a rare and touching public display. Tiffany's mother, Marla Maples, played a hands-on role in the planning, ensuring the day felt as heartfelt as it was lavish. Tiffany's siblings, Ivanka, Eric, and Donald Jr., were all present, dressed to impress and smiling for the cameras, projecting a united family front. Michael Boulos comes from a wealthy business family with strong ties to Nigeria and Lebanon, which made the wedding a fascinating cultural blend. The guest list included prominent figures from both sides: politicians, business tycoons, and international elites. This wedding was more than a celebration of love. It was the union of two powerful families with global influence. Though the Trump name carries political weight, this occasion was personal, not political. It was a celebration of Tiffany and Michael's journey together, a rare moment for the family to savor away from the pressures of public office. While the event was undeniably grand, at its heart, it was a wedding about two people embarking on a new chapter, just with a little extra sparkle. But behind the glittering surface, cracks in their marriage began to show. What exactly went wrong? The strain of a high-profile marriage. Everyone knows Tiffany Trump and Michael Boulos haven't officially split, at least not publicly. Still, rumors swirl. Speculation about their relationship status continues to circulate, and though there's no concrete evidence of trouble, it makes you wonder, if they were to part ways, what could be the reasons? Tiffany might not have been as much in the political spotlight as her father or siblings, but let's be honest. Being a Trump means constant scrutiny. Michael comes from a powerful business dynasty with its own well-established reputation. Marrying into either of these families isn't just about love. It involves managing expectations, family legacies, and public scrutiny. The relentless pressure to maintain a flawless image, balance family demands, and handle media attention can strain even the strongest relationships. Michael's background is unique. Born into a wealthy Lebanese-Nigerian family, he grew up in a very different world than Tiffany's American high society upbringing. Though both come from privilege, their cultural influences and lifestyles are quite distinct. Marrying someone from a different culture can be exciting and enriching, but it also brings its own set of challenges. Differences in expectations around family roles, traditions, and career goals could lead to tensions over time. Plus, Tiffany and Michael have spent considerable time living in different parts of the world. With Michael's business interests tied to Nigeria and global ventures, he likely travels frequently, while Tiffany has mostly been based in the U.S. Their relationship reportedly began while Tiffany was in law school and Michael was managing family business overseas, so they had some experience with long distance. But marriage is a whole different level. Living apart for long stretches in separate countries can put serious strain on any couple. And coming from such influential families, there's always the question of how much family pressure and expectations affect their decisions. The Trump family is famously close-knit in both business and personal matters, while Michael's family has its own empire to safeguard. Could these external family pressures or conflicting business interests eventually cause friction in their marriage? And then there's the lavish Mar-a-Lago wedding. While weddings are moments of celebration, marriage is a daily commitment. Once the glamour fades and real life kicks in, couples often face challenges. Could Tiffany and Michael be struggling with the everyday realities of married life once the excitement wore off? It's certainly possible. Even the most perfect-looking couples face private difficulties. Of course, this is all speculation. But if Tiffany and Michael were ever to part ways, these could be some of the real reasons behind it. On top of marriage pressures, Tiffany has also faced challenges within her own family, especially with her father. So what's really going on between Tiffany and Donald Trump? Tiffany Trump and Donald Trump. A complex father-daughter relationship. Unlike Ivanka, Eric, and Donald Jr., who were raised deep within their father's empire and constantly surrounded by him, Tiffany's upbringing was quite different. As Donald Trump's only child with Marla Maples, she mostly grew up with her mother in California, far removed from the glitz, pressures, and expectations of Trump Tower. Though she has always carried the Trump name, reports suggest that Tiffany's relationship with her father has been distant and strained for years, with whispers of a complicated bond between them. Unlike her siblings, who have been deeply involved in Trump's business deals and political life, Tiffany has often appeared removed from the family's inner circle. According to sources, there were lengthy stretches when she and her father barely communicated, sometimes going months without speaking. And let's be honest, when a family is built on legacy, business, and loyalty, being on the outskirts can complicate things. Tiffany herself has acknowledged the unusual nature of their relationship, saying, "I don't know what it's like to have a typical father figure. He's not the dad who's going to take me to the beach and go swimming, but he's such a motivational person." Beyond the physical distance, ideological differences have added complexity to their bond. The Trump family is well known for its conservative values, with Donald Trump spearheading a political movement rooted in traditional beliefs. Tiffany, however, has shown more liberal tendencies. Her affiliations and activities sometimes diverge from the family's conservative image, sparking speculation about tension behind the scenes. For example, her attendance at events outside the family's usual circles has raised eyebrows. These ideological differences can create subtle strains, especially in a family that prizes loyalty and a united public front. Then there's the talk about Tiffany possibly giving up Trump Organization real estate. While it might sound like just another property decision, symbolically it could mean much more. The Trump empire isn't what it used to be. Since leaving the White House in 2021, Donald Trump's businesses have faced legal battles, financial scrutiny, and a shifting public image. The once glamorous Trump brand has dimmed somewhat, and for Tiffany, who's always had one foot in and one foot out, this might be the perfect time to quietly step back. In a move loaded with symbolism, luxury jeweler Tiffany and Company decided to vacate a Trump-owned building in New York City. Since 2018, Tiffany and Company had leased space at 6 East 57th Street, a Trump Organization property, while their flagship store underwent renovations. This departure marked more than just a change in the commercial real estate market. It reflected broader shifts within the Trump empire after the presidency. The vacancy highlighted the Trump Organization's struggle to keep high-profile tenants amid changing market conditions. At the end of the day, Tiffany Trump has always been the most unpredictable member of the family. She's never fully committed, but she's never completely detached either. Could this be the moment she finally makes a clean break? If rumors of a split from Michael Boulos are true, and if she's stepping away from Trump business ventures, then maybe, just maybe, Tiffany is ready to live life on her own terms for the first time. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more